This is Julio's Corner, my corner of the internet where I talk about whatever is on my mind. I'll mostly talk about stuff I've watched, read, or listened to, but sometimes I may ramble on about the news or politics or on society at large. This episode is being recorded on Sunday, October 26, 2025. And welcome back to the show. You may have noticed, if you are looking at this in a podcast app, that I've changed the cover art. I decided to update it. As much as I love the Colombian flag with the little token symbol and whatnot, I do feel like it was kind of pedestrian in comparison to podcast art in other podcasts. You know, obviously, unlike myself, those probably have professional designers or people with a design background, and I am not that at all. I mean, I was an art minor way back when, in the 90s, so I played around with, at the time, it was Quark Express and, simple clip art kind of things. So yeah, and I haven't been doing anything artistic in that fashion visually. So yeah, I'm kind of, I'm no professional and I am not adept at fancy graphics. That being said, there is AI art generation available. So I decided to dabble. I looked up some AI art generators, found one that was free, and I wrote my little description of what I wanted. I wanted something with sort of a city alleyway kind of feel with my title in neon lights. And so what you see in front of you is my new cover art. Now, for those on YouTube, I did not update the animation, so you're getting the classic Colombian flag with the token spinning around and around, because that's all I have for now. I am thinking of maybe drawing a cartoon version of myself. I'm going to try that. So sometime in the near future, you'll have that in YouTube. But for now, you'll have the old school artwork. But for the podcast, you'll see the nice brick wall with the neon lights saying the name of the show. Anyways, speaking of podcasting, I've switched podcasting hosts. I was originally on, first off, I was doing it for free with WordPress.com and all that jazz. But then I decided to sign up for Libsyn because that was the first podcast host I used way back when in 08 or 07, before my return to New York City in 09. So I did use Libsyn in the past because Buzzsprout, which became my favorite podcasting host, wasn't available. They did not exist back in those days. So it was Libsyn. However, the price plan that I was on started giving me trouble with my storage. Apparently, even though they said I had up to 3 hours of recording time or whatever, it didn't feel that way. It kept, it was showing that I didn't. So I recorded my show last week, and then it, for some reason, didn't have any space for me to upload the show. So I was scrambling, deciding, am I going to upgrade and get suckered into upgrading to the $15 plan plus the $2 I was paying them for the domain name use? Or is this a sign that I should just find someone else? Because at that point, you're hitting the price plans of other podcast hosts that are more advanced and probably less complicated. So I spent all Sunday doing that, and it was Sunday morning, right before sleeping, and that cut into any time I would have used to watch the NFL. Anyways, so I didn't really watch as many NFL games last Sunday as I would have liked and as I've had in the past, because I had this trek of podcast host troubles and tribulations. So I was currently paying $7 plus $2 with the current plan on Libsyn, but apparently that wasn't enough. So the next plan up is $15 plus $2, so that's $17 a month. So I decided, okay, let me shop around. So the next service I tried very briefly was Podbean. They had the best price for unlimited storage at $9 a month, and they promised domain, being able to use your custom domain name, which is what I want to use. I want to use julioscorner.com because I own it. So why not use it? Because it's the name of my show. So I was trying to follow their instructions on how to set it up, and it was just very complicated and it wasn't working. So after setting up the redirect from Libsyn to Podbean and thinking that was going to be it, and then having the problem with the domain name, I got upset and frustrated, so I canceled that and tried the next plan, which was Pod2. That's Podtoo, as in you can podcast here as well. Podcast 2, Pod2. And I realized that they were actually cheaper than Podbean at $7.99 a month with no annual commitment. So that was definitely better. Now, they did not have, you couldn't do custom domain with them. So I was like, you know what, I'll forego that if I can use them, because at $7.99 a month for unlimited uploads, it's a good deal. However, the interface was really confusing. You had to set up like a group or something when I'm just set up a team of like staff, I guess, but I'm just a team of one. And this is something I've never had to do with any other podcast service before. So anyway, I figured it out. It wasn't as, it was still complicated in that I never dealt with it before, but I figured it out. There were no instructions. So it was just something I was able to just learn on the fly. So I made my team name and put my podcast under it. And then I tried to import it, but it wasn't working. It just wouldn't take. So, okay, so that's not going to work for me because I need this done stat. I need it done because I have my show ready that I want to upload. So this isn't going to work for me. So then I canceled that one. And then I tried the next one, which was $15.99 a month. So now we're hitting that price point, right? Again, Libsyn is 15 plus 2 for the custom domain stuff. So this is in that price range. It's less, but they offer a bunch of other, because it's supposed to be modern, the most modern way to do podcasting, because they give you AI assistance for like creating transcripts and chapter markers and help with your show notes and things like that, which other than the transcript part, I don't really care about the rest because I have my own show notes that I write up, and when I'm editing my show, I already set up my timestamps that I'm going to put in for the chapters. So that's not necessary. The transcript, however, is definitely, that would have been a plus for me. So I try using their service, setting up the custom domain. Oh, the custom domain was also part of the plan. So, okay, great. So this is already cheaper than Libsyn in terms of giving me everything I wanted. However, setting up the domain name was a bit of a pain because it was different from the way Libsyn did it. Libsyn was using, and okay, I'm sorry if this is too technical for people who don't care about web, setting up websites and whatnot. But for those who understand this is for you, I guess. With Libsyn, you have to use name servers. So like ns1.libsyn something or other, whatever. And then you have to do like 4 of those for Libsyn. For Podhome, you had to use the DNS settings. So I had to reset the name servers back to my domain, my domain manager's original settings, and then just use the DNS settings, which I'm already using for the email portion of my domain. So luckily this wouldn't affect the email the way the name servers did with Libsyn, and then they had to do something on their end to fix the email because that kept dying on me. But even then, using their easy, quote unquote, easy step-by-step instructions, it wasn't working. That being said, their customer service was amazing because this was now Monday morning and, early morning because obviously, I'm up late at night And so they promptly communicated back to me and they helped fix it. So now I had the basics set up, and now I was trying to set up the website because I wanted a contact page so that listeners can reach me via the contact page the way I had it set up with WordPress. And supposedly you could customize your website. However, with Podhome, you need to know CSS and HTML. So I was trying to use some HTML editor on a HTML editing website and did a copy and paste, thinking that would be it, because I've done that before in other services that required that kind of editing. But of course, it wasn't working. And they offered you use this other service for your CSS coding and whatnot. And so I went to that webpage via their recommendation link, and of course that requires more money and some courses to learn and what have you. And I'm like, yeah, not going to happen. I'm not going to waste more time because I'm trying to get this show up, and this should be just simple plug and play. So now that's not an option. Canceled that right away. Thankfully, these are all trial periods, so I'm not like giving up money and then waiting for the credit to come back in 2 business days or whatever, because they all offer 7-day, 14-day trial periods. So wasn't getting charged anything just yet. So great. So now I'm trying rss.com, and once again, another service that doesn't offer domain name, being able to set up your domain name with them. Fine. No custom domain name available. I will forego that in this case. And they're at $11.99 a month. And they also offer all those other like transcript options and what have you with their AI service included in the $11.99 a month if you do the annual plan. So like Podbean and like Podbean, you do pay less if you do it annually. So fine. But then I decided, you know what? Before I go through another situation like I did already with Podbean and Pod2 and Podhome, just jumping headfirst in and setting it all up. Before I do all that, let me look at some sample sites of other podcasts that use this service, because they actually had a page to show you, to feature other podcasts that use their service. So great. So I was able to go and check those out. And their website for those other podcasts also did not offer a contact option for your listeners. So that's just a deal breaker for me, because I want to give, not that I've gotten a lot of feedback, but I want that option available. With my free option, setting up my webpage with WordPress, I was able to create a contact form and give you a link to click on. With Libsyn, same thing. They had that page that you could just easily set up. It was very easy setting up my website with Libsyn. The problem was the domain name, which required their assistance on the back end. So that was fine. And plus you have to pay $2 extra for that. So okay, but then upgrading to the 15 was the deal breaker for me. So RSS.com, even though the second most affordable option wasn't going to work for me, so I decided, oh crap, this is really happening. I'm going to have to go back to Buzzsprout, which, like I mentioned, was my favorite podcast hosting service. The only thing I did not like about them is that they upped their price to $19 a month. So I had to really think about it. Okay, so if I stick with Libsyn, we're paying $17 a month with the custom domain, because it's $15 plus the $2 for the custom domain. For $2 extra with Buzzsprout, I get the custom domain name is plug and play. My domain manager site, with the website that I use to pay for my domain names, they have a quick plug and play button. You just hit Buzzsprout, and it immediately sets it up with your podcast. That's it. You just press a button, It's very simple. I've always had great customer service with them. Setting up my show on their site is easy. They give you a very easy contact option for your, feedback option for your listeners via a text message link that you have on your show notes. And the website is nice and clean, and it's, it has everything. Plus, it offers you chapter markers, which is something Libsyn doesn't have, and I can, upload transcripts on it with ease as well. So it was like I was destined to just go back to Buzzsprout because that was the best service that I've ever used when I was paying for a podcast host, even though it's at $19 a month. Price aside, I have no complaints with Buzzsprout. I'm very happy with their service. They never steer me wrong. So I'm back with Buzzsprout. Because like I said, Pod 2 would have been the cheapest plan, but they weren't even able to import my podcast. It just wasn't, it was failing. So that was an easy give up. Podbean, just too frustrating to deal with. Pod Home, about the same. Plus their website did not look great. It was kind of aesthetically, it wasn't a good look. Even Libsyn, as antiquated as Libsyn is, being one of the original podcast hosting services available, their site looks a lot cleaner for your podcast than the ones with Podhome, who are supposed to be the most modern, and yet their podcast template it just looks very antiquated and ugly. So I'm back with Buzzsprout, and it's just a much better. It's $2 more, but yeah, I'm not complaining. Aside of I'm just gonna have to make it work in my budget, and because everything else about Buzzsprout is it's perfect. I have no other complaints with that. So anyway, with this whole debacle regarding podcast hosting, just makes me realize something about myself. I don't know if it's a flaw in my character or what, but it's definitely me. It's my makeup. It's what I am. I am a bit of a perfectionist, and I think I've said in the past that I'm a bit of a control freak. And because of all that, I am very particular in needing things to work a certain way to satisfy the outcome of whatever. And for example, this whole podcasting thing, I was willing to go with Libsyn, even though it wasn't my first choice, because I thought it was the most affordable. It was $7 a month. But then I had to pay $2 extra for the domain name. Fine, whatever. And then there was a little bit of a complication to get my custom email to work with the domain name because of what you have to do to set up your domain name with their service, which would then deactivate my email, and then I would have to give them the DNS records for my email so they could do it on their back end and yada yada yada, get it all to work. So there was all of that, and then I feel on top of that, thinking that their plan would have worked for me because of they claimed that the amount of space they give you equated to 3 hours of recording time. And then here I am about to hit the 3 hour mark, and all of a sudden I don't have any space available. So you have to go to the next, which is considered a 6 hour plan for $15. So plus the $2 that I'm already paying for the domain name. So that kind of, I felt kind of cheated because they should have just been more clear and direct from the start, from the jump. Because that $7 plan obviously wasn't going to work. But whatever. Lesson learned. And then the other services, I wish they were a lot easier to work with, and then I probably would have stayed with one of them. But yeah, no, it was Podbean. Funny enough, has always been a service that I looked at because they're like supposedly the most affordable, and yet there was always something about them that would turn me off. And my experience with them, once again, just validated my initial trepidation with ever joining them, because once again, it didn't pan out. Pod 2 at $7.99 would have been ideal. However, they couldn't even import my show. So it's like, well, if you can't even grab my show from another service like you're supposed to, like every other hosting service has no issue with, how can I rely on you to be able to keep my show up and running on your platform? It didn't give me a lot of confidence in them with this initial fail right from the jump. And then Podhome, just an ugly looking site on top of paying $15.99 a month, and having the complications that I was already having with them with setting up my domain name. So all of that, and then also not even being able to create the contact form for listeners to give feedback with. It just didn't meet the $15.99 a month price point for the kind of service that to charge that much. I didn't feel you were getting the right features and what have you. It just wasn't worthy of that price point. So yeah, maybe if I wanted to drop down a price point, I might consider RSS.com and just use my email that I was going to use, that I used to always plug. It's just most people no one really uses email anymore. So that's why saying the email address is kind of pointless because no one uses it. People prefer an easy link to click on for a contact form, or with Buzzsprout you can do a quick text message, an anonymous text message to me, which is nice. So anyways, I'm very particular about things working a certain way. And another example of that, how I am with technology, is with smartphones. I'm currently on iPhone. I'm on an iPhone 13, and I've been with Apple most of my smartphone life. So we're talking since the iPhone 3GS. In between the iPhone 3GS and the current iPhone 13 that I now have, I have had an Android phone. I had the HTC. I think it was the HTC M8. Yeah, I'm just looking it up, and it was the HTC One M8. It was a beautiful phone. Came out around 2014, which is that sounds about right. It was right before I joined Apple. Which made me jump right back to the iPhone because I was working at Apple. So I can't have an Android phone if I'm troubleshooting iPhones and I don't have an iPhone of my own to play around with the settings and whatnot to really know the insides and outs of it when dealing with customers. So the HTC One M8 was an Android phone that I had in between. So anyways, since then, I've just been on the iPhone. There were times when I thought about jailbreaking the phone in the early, 2014 days, but it wasn't worth it for what you can get out of it, out of jailbreaking. It just wasn't worth it. So, saying all that, I have been looking at Android again in this year of 2025, but even as appealing as some of these new Android phones look, and the new operating system that the Google phones specifically have, not to mention the lack of privacy with Android because of all the tracking that they do for Google ads and whatnot. It's just a head scratcher for me. So one of the pros of Android phones that always is appealing to me, on top of I do like some Google services, despite the fact that Google tracks everything you do with their services. I love the customization options that you have on Android, and just their approach to innovation for smartphones is more cutting edge than the iPhone. I'll give you that. They're usually, I would say, 2 years ahead on features than the iPhone, because the iPhone, Apple likes to take their time to look at what's going on in the smartphone market, and then they'll make their version of that. And of course, when they finally do add a feature on the iPhone, it's in the Apple way. It works amazing, and it's bug free and whatnot, because they didn't jump right in like the way Android tends to do, or at least the way Android tends to do. And when I say Android, it's definitely an umbrella term, because like Windows on PCs, where you have many makers of window machines, you have your HPs, your Dells, your Sonys, your Lenovo. I'm trying to think of Gateway might still be around, HP, if I didn't say that already. So the way how you have many different makers of window machines, because there's so many other companies available. Oh, Asus, so many different so many different companies that make window machines. That's the same with Android. There's many Android phone makers out there. So there's a lot of like Windows. There's a lot of fragmentation. So you have your Samsung, you have OnePlus, you have Google with their Pixel phone, and there used to be HTC, as I mentioned. They used to be a big time phone maker in the market, but they've since fallen out of favor. And I don't think they really, if they do make any Android phones, none of them come to the US anymore. Samsung, Google, and OnePlus tend to be the big ones in the US market nowadays. So those are the three that I was looking at. So here's my problems with the three big Google makers, right? You have Google has their Pixel 13 Pro and their Pixel 13, and of course the Pixel 13 Plus and the Pixel Fold. We'll focus on we'll stick with the just the Pixel 13 and Pixel 13 Pro. Samsung has their S25 Ultra and their S25 Pro, I guess. And then you have OnePlus 13. So here are the issues. Here are the cons of each of these Android devices that make me not want to jump ship, because of these stumbles, these obstacles kind of keep me on the Apple side, even though I'm kind of bored with Apple. Apple's a little, as much as Apple is always, secure, and when they pull out a feature, when they push a new feature out, it's bug free and it's perfect and it's well integrated, because Apple is the only maker of iPhones and the only one that uses iOS. Same with their Macs. They're the only ones that make their computers, their Macs. And the whole ecosystem, it just works seamlessly, because they're in control of the hardware and the software. So it makes sense that you get a seamless experience. Unlike with Android, there's so many different makers of it, with many different dimensions and different processor chips and the way they set up their software and so on, because they all want to customize Android in their fashion. So Samsung has, I forget the name of their operating system, and you know what? I don't know any of their systems, so I'm not even going to try to say what they're called. But they all have. I think OnePlus is Oxygen. OnePlus has Oxygen. I don't know Samsung and Google. I'm just going to say it's Google. Anyways, so let's start with Samsung. Spec wise, Samsung gives you the best hardware, and also they make a lot of the hardware parts for iPhone. So like the Apple Glass, Samsung. A lot of the innards are Samsung, and so on. So on top of making the parts for iPhones, they also have all the top specs on their Android phones. So the Samsung S25 Ultra is top of the line with their the processor chip that they use. I forget the name of it. It's Legacy something, whatever. The problem with Samsung is the software. There's too much Samsung bloatware, because yeah, you can use Google's version of Apple Pay, Google Wallet, or Google Pay, whatever it's called. But hey, Samsung has their version of that. Yeah, you can use the Android text messaging app, but we have our text messaging app. Yeah, you can use the Google email app, but we have our email app, so forth and so on. So you have double of a lot of things, and you would have to go out of your way to remove it all if you don't want to use those things. And there's many ways of configuring all that, but again, that's just a lot of work. Then you have OnePlus, and OnePlus has a good price point. I think their OnePlus 13 right now is like I think it's 800 for 256 gigabytes, which is $200 or more less than the Samsung S25 Ultra. Has the same processor chip, has a lot of the same specs. Their screen might not be the best one, but doesn't matter. They have a better battery. And yeah, they forego there's a couple of things that they forewent. They might not have the best cameras, but I'm not a camera person, so that doesn't bother me. Their cameras are on par with my my current iPhone 13, I believe. And yeah, so you would think, okay, why not the OnePlus 13? Well, for me, OnePlus 13 doesn't offer enough software support. With Apple, my iPhone 13 is currently, well, they're on the 17 now, right? So that's 4 years old now. So my phone is a 4-year-old device, and I still have the current operating system. And I'll probably get the newest operating system next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. Apple tends to give like between 6 to 8 years of software support on all their devices. So I like that kind of safety net of software support, because on top of having the latest and greatest software-wise, that also includes security updates. So if there's any bugs out there to make your phone vulnerable and make your info vulnerable, Apple will give you those security updates to protect you. And OnePlus One doesn't offer that same amount of support. So with OnePlus, they only offer 4 years of major Android updates, and only 6 years of security updates. So maybe they give you enough years of security updates, but the fact that they only give 4 years of software support, meaning all the new upgrades and whatnot, is kind of discerning to me. And they also don't update them. That's the other thing with Android, right? Google, when Google, because they're the makers of the Android software, as soon as they push out an update or a new software, the other makers take a while to incorporate it into their version, their flavor of Android, and update it on their devices. So if you want the latest software updates, you definitely want to get a Google phone, a Google Android phone, because even Samsung, as fast as they update their software, it's not at the same speed as on Google owned devices. Whereas that's not an issue with iPhone, because again, only Apple makes the Apple iPhone. And so as soon as Apple pushes out an update, your phone gets the notification, and then you just update it at your leisure. So that's another problem. So only 4 years of software support on the Pixel, on the OnePlus hardware, which I guess might be okay, but you're paying $800. And so like I have an iPhone 13, it's a 4-year-old device, and I am thinking of upgrading. But the point is, if I decide, I can't afford it, I'm going to stick with the 13. That's fine. My 13 will have another 2 to 3 years more of software support. So we're talking 7 to 8. Whereas OnePlus is already saying flat out 4 years. Now that used to be the case with all Android phones, but because they're trying to match up with Apple, they've since pushed it up. Samsung does offer 7 years of support, as does Google. Google offers 7 years of support on their devices. So Samsung has bloatware, which is a problem for me. It's complicated. It's just annoying. OnePlus doesn't offer enough software support. So now we come to Google. You would think, okay, well then the Pixel phones would be the option, right? Well, no. And the reason is Google is trying to follow the Apple model, right? What is the Apple model? Well, Apple makes their own hardware and software, and that includes the processor. So Samsung, OnePlus, like your Windows machines that use Intel to make their processors, Apple makes their own processors, even for their Macs. The M1, the M series, because Apple used to use Intel for their processors, but they got tired of the delays that Intel is with their processors, and they started making their own Apple silicon chips. They started that with the iPhones first, and they've since moved on with the Macs. And like I have an M1 iMac, they're up to M4 now and M5 in some cases with their computer line. Anyways, so Google decided, you know what? Unlike these other Android phone makers that use, I think it's Qualcomm. They use Qualcomm Snapdragon. That's what it is. They use the Qualcomm Snapdragon processor for the processors of their Android phones. Google stopped using them a couple of years ago. They started making their own Tensor chip, and it's inferior to the Qualcomm processor in terms of horsepower, in terms of like how fast it processes. And the newest iteration of their Tensor chip is no exception to that rule. So if you want specs, hardware specs, you want to go with the Samsung or the OnePlus because they are better hardware-wise than the Google Pixel phone. The one advantage of the Tensor chip to the Qualcomm chip that Google has is because they customize it, and they've since they switched their hardware maker as well, their processor maker. It used to be a different company. Now they're using TMSC, which is the same company that Apple uses to make their Apple Silicon chips. Apparently, they're the best company for processors for smartphones. So Google is now using them for their new Tensor 2 chip. So even though it doesn't have the processing power of the Qualcomm Snapdragon that the other Android phones have, there's this other chip in the background that's fine-tuned specifically for AI, because apparently that is the future of Silicon Valley. That is the next technological frontier that these tech companies are trying to take over, which is artificial intelligence, AI. So in terms of the advantage that the Pixel phone has, their advantage is it is more finely tuned for the Google AI service that they have. I keep forgetting the name. I was going to say Meta, but that's Meta. That's Facebook. That's that company's AI. Theirs is called something else, which I don't use. Let me look it up. Their AI is called Gemini. So the Pixel phones are more integrated with Gemini than any other Android phone, and because it's the cleanest version of Android, so no bloatware, but all Google products, and then whatever apps you download on it, it has the advantage of integrating Gemini with all those products. So it works better with their email, with Gmail, and with the text messaging and with the call screening and whatever. So it does all of this Gemini assistance on those other devices. And also, of course, the other boon. Well, no, the other boon that I'm thinking of, they use AI to help with your photo editing, but I think that feature is also available on the other Android phones. So that one, that case scenario is not exclusive, but there's these other case scenarios that are exclusive to the Pixel phones. So if that's all you care about, then yeah, the Pixel phone would be the perfect choice if making the jump on Android. However, so the hardware is inferior. You get premium software experience, but then they're charging you the same amount of money that you would pay for a Samsung phone. So if I'm going to pay Samsung prices for hardware that's more mid-tier, but you're getting that software experience that's exclusive to the Pixel line, it's not enough of it's a bad sell for me. If I'm going to pay $1,000 for a phone, I expect it to be $1,000 phone, which you do get when you buy an iPhone or a Samsung. You just have to deal with the bloatware. So if all that's said and done, it makes me decide, yeah, as boring as Apple has become, because I've been with Apple forever, essentially, minus that small window in time when I was using an HTC One M8. in 2014, right before I got hired by Apple, and then I had to let go of that device after having it for a few months. So outside of that small window when I actually had an Android phone that I loved, I've just been so entrenched in the Apple ecosystem with the iPhone. I love the uniformity of the apps. Again, because it's Apple, every iPhone iteration has the same experience. So when a new update comes out, a new app comes out, whatever, it works the same way on all iPhones and on iPads. And I love the prompt software updates, and as I mentioned, the software support is about is definitely even more than 7 years that you would get with Android. And I love the integration of my phone with my Mac and my iPad. They all work seamlessly with one another. So with all that said and done, it seems like I'm just going to stick with the Apple service. Now, I'm saying that now, but I can't be fickle. But again, this is just a realization of myself. I need things to be, I'm very particular about how I want things to work. And so the other thing about Android phones over iPhone is that come Christmas time, because a lot of new Android phones come out in January. iPhones come out in the fall. Android phones come out throughout the year, but like Samsung, the ones that I'm looking at, Samsung, OnePlus, they come out in around January. Their new devices generally come out in January and spring. So because of that, the current phones, the S25 Ultras, the OnePlus phones, and even the Pixel phone, even though Pixel just came out, Pixel 13 came out a few months ago, and they're not going to have a new one come out until the fall of next year. But even then, Android phones tend to drop hundreds of dollars in the wintertime. So I'm going to keep my eye open. I might eventually jump on a Pixel phone if it's priced appropriately for what you're getting. In my case, I'm looking at $800 or less, because at $1,000, then I'm just going to look at the iPhone 17, which is only $800. And the iPhone 17 is, spec-wise, is greater than the Pixel phone, the Pixel Pro. So it's definitely better than the Pixel 13. And if you're looking at the Pixel 13 Pro, that isn't that much better than the Pixel 13 at $1,000-something, but I'm getting more hardware-wise with a $800 iPhone. I'm just going to stick with the iPhone. So if the Pixel Pro drops to $800 come the wintertime, I may do the switch, but that would be my jumping off point. It has to be around $800, or it's not going to happen. I'm just going to stick with Apple because again, it's just, I want to get the best bang for my buck, and yeah, that's what I have to say about all that. So, anyways, and that wraps up the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or any thoughts you'd like to share, you can reach me by clicking on the Contact Me link in the show notes. Text message rates do apply. If you're feeling extra generous, you can click on the donate link in the show notes and send some money my way. This show's licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. This means you can share this episode, remix it, do whatever you want. Just say where you got it from. And as always, thank you for listening.